I am Miss Corral from Navigator Schools. This is Standard 5 NF1, and in this video you will learn how to add fractions with unlike denominators. You will need to know a few academic vocabulary words to help you understand this standard. The first word is sum. The sum is an answer to an addition problem. So I have 2 apples plus 1 apple equals 3. 2 plus 1 equals 3. 3 is the sum. Our next word is fraction. A fraction is parts of a whole. It contains a numerator and a denominator. Here are some fractions written in number form, and here are some fraction models shown. Our next word is numerator. Numerator is how many parts we have. It's the top number of a fraction. Another important word is denominator. The denominator is how many equal parts in a fraction. It's the bottom number of a fraction. Our last vocabulary word is least common multiple. This is the smallest multiple between two numbers. So for example, if I was looking for the LCM of 2 and 6, first I would need to write out the multiples of 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and of course I can keep going. Now let's do some multiples of 6. 6, 12. Oh, but I can stop because I see that I have a common multiple already. The smallest common multiple is 6. So the LCM of 2 and 6 would be 6. A common mistake is adding the denominators. Don't do it. 1/2 plus 3/4 does not equal 4/6. You must find a common denominator. So our first problem is 1/2 plus 3/4. I can see I don't have a common denominator. Let's find the least common multiple between my denominators of 2 and 4. So my multiples of 2 would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I'm going to stop there. And my multiples of 4 would be 4. But I can stop there because I'm looking for the least common multiple. I can already see that they have 4 in common. 4 would be my LCM. If I multiply 1/2 by 2 over 2, that gets me to my denominator of 4. And when I multiply by a fraction that equals 1 whole, I'm not really changing the fraction. If I multiply my numerator, 1 times 2 equals 2. So 1/2 has now turned into 2/4. If I multiply 3/4 by 1 over 1, because that will get me my denominator of 4, and again, I'm multiplying by a fraction that equals 1 whole, not really changing the fraction. If I multiply my numerator, 3 times 1 is 3. 3/4 actually stayed the same. Now that I have a common denominator of 4, I can find the sum. 2/4 plus 3/4 equals 5/4. I can check my answer by drawing a model to represent my fractions. 1/2 has turned into 2/4. 3/4 stayed the same. I also got 5/4 as my answer, so I know I solved it correctly. Here's a real-world problem for you. On a hot day, Sally poured 9/10 of a bucket of water into a plastic wading pool. A few minutes later, she added another 1/2 of a bucket. How much water did Sally pour into the pool? First, I need to understand the question. I know that 9/10 and 1/2 are important numbers. I also see a key word, added. This tells me that I need to add my two fractions in order to find the total amount of water that Sally poured into the wading pool. I know that when I add fractions, I need a common denominator. I don't have that yet. Let's find the LCM between our two denominators, 10 and 2. I can see that my LCM is 10. That is the denominator I need. If I multiply 9/10 by 1 over 1, 10 times 1 gets me to my common denominator of 10. 9 times 1 equals 9. 9/10 actually stayed the same. And if I multiply 1/2 by 5 over 5, 2 times 5 gets me to my common denominator of 10. 1 times 5 gets me 5. So 1/2 turned into 5/10. Now my new equation is 9/10 plus 5/10. 9/10 plus 5/10 equals 14/10. I can check my answer by drawing a model to represent my fractions. I can see 9/10 has stayed the same. 1/2 has an equivalent fraction of 5/10. 9/10 plus 5/10 would equal 14/10. I can see that my answer is the same. So to answer the question, Sally poured 14/10 buckets into the plastic wading pool because once you find the common denominator, the sum between 9/10 and 5/10 equals 14/10. Now you will be able to add fractions with unlike denominators. You will use the standard in the real world like Sally did. She added 2 different amounts of liquid and needed to know the total amount of that liquid. When you have 2 amounts of liquid and the fractions have different denominators, now you'll know how to add them. Thank you for watching.